Innocent and incarcerated, an American nightmare. Viewer discretion is advised. This is talking about a sensitive matter, but yet an important one. Please like, share, subscribe, spread the word. Please go to change.org and sign the petition for Gary Wayne Sutton to get him justice. This is the case of if the date don't fit, you must acquit. Gary Wayne Sutton, wrongful conviction. We're going to summarize this case a little bit for you guys. On February 24th of 1992, Tommy Griffin was found shot to death on the riverbanks of Blount County, Tennessee. His sister, Connie Branham, who had gone out looking for him after he did not return home from its night on the town, was found burned alive in her vehicle just 4 days later in Sevier County, Tennessee. Witnesses for the state testified that they had seen Griffin at Howie's Hideaway, a local bar, with Gary Sutton and James Dellinger, Sutton's uncle, on the night that Griffin was murdered. As a matter of fact, Sutton and Griffin were close friends, and the three men could often be found frolicking around town, as many men their age do. However, on this particular evening, after an altercation at the bar with two men known only as Chief and Cowboy, Griffin went his way and was later arrested for public intoxication. Upon arrest, the arresting officer noted that Griffin seemed scared, but that he wouldn't tell him why or what had happened. He also noted that Griffin was with two older gentlemen driving a dark-colored truck. These men have never been identified. While Griffin was in the drunk tank, his trailer was set ablaze. When a family member noticed the fire, they asked Dillinger if Griffin was inside, and he told her that Griffin was with a woman he had met at the bar. Dillinger also reportedly refused to go near the fire because he was already in enough trouble. Sutton and Dillinger then went to the jail and bailed Griffin out. Both men have maintained that upon release, Griffin left with the same woman from the bar who they say had dark hair and was driving a Ford Falcon. The detectives claimed to have found spent shells at the crime scene that matched shells discovered at Dillinger's trailer. However, just weeks prior, Dillinger's trailer had been shot up. The report was filed. So this would raise the question of whether the shells discovered were from Dillinger, target practicing as they claim, or whether they were from the firearm that was used by the person or persons who had previously shot up Dillinger's trailer. The shells were not at the scene 3 days prior when the body was found, as they were found mere inches from where the body was discovered. It is also worth noting that the shells were lying next to each other just perfectly, which is like a 1 in a billion chance of them landing like that. And furthermore, why even eject that second shell at all? Or just pick them up? The state Gary Sutton to the crime, other than the gross speculation that Sutton and Dillinger were together the entire weekend of which the crimes occurred. However, Sutton had a witness that testified he was with her. Nonetheless, the state refused to separate the two men's trials, even stating in open court that if they did so, Sutton would walk because they had nothing tying him to the crime. Both men were convicted and sentenced to death based on circumstantial manufactured evidence. Let's look at Detective Widner, TBI agent, Davenport, and the Brady violations. Let us first look at the illegal arrest warrants. Transcripts from the Sevier County Jail prove that Detective Widner lied about having eyewitnesses in order to obtain an arrest warrant. When confronted by Judge Ogle, Widner admitted to having lied. TBI agent Davenport also told the same lie for an arrest warrant in Blount County. Davenport was not called to testify in Blount County due to the fact that while testifying in Sevier County, he was exposed for forging investigator Mark Turner's signature on a 3-page statement that he, Davenport, claimed Gary Sutton had given to him, Davenport, during an unauthorized visit to Sutton at the Sevier County Jail, after Sutton had already invoked his Miranda rights and his Fifth Amendment right to counsel, thus violating his Fifth Amendment. Now, let's take a gander at these illegal search warrants. Sevier County transcripts also reveal that Detective Widner lied to Judge Sexton in order to obtain a search warrant of James Dillinger's trailer, where they allegedly found the shotguns and shells that they claim matched the shells found at the crime scene 3 days later. Despite having admitted to fabricating evidence for the search warrant, Judge Ogle again allowed evidence found during that search. Three days after Tommy Griffin's body was delivered, and after having searched James Dillinger's property, Detective Widner returned to the crime scene and claimed to have found these magic shotgun shells that they allegedly missed. Sutton and Dillinger's defense attorneys enlarged photographs of the crime scene on the day Griffin's body was found, February 24, 1992, and placed that photograph next to crime scene photographs taken when the shells were discovered 3 days later, showing that they were not in the first photographs, but seemed to have miraculously appeared after Widner performed the search warrant on Dillinger's property. That is the planted evidence. Let's take a look at these shotgun shells that they found. It is amazing how they are just perfectly together there, right here, right next to each other, just so perfectly placed there. It's in the multiple firearms experts' opinion that these shells were placed there based on the fact that they're so perfectly lined up. Shotgun shells don't eject like that. Again, they're not here 3 days prior until after shells were recovered from Dillinger's yard in the illegal search. Now, it continues. We are now going to discuss disgraced medical examiner Charles Harlan and his effect on Gary Wayne Sutton's case and his fate. The state shopped around for a medical examiner that would give a testimony that fit their narrative. Dr. Charles Harlan, who was under investigation by the TBI at the time he testified in this trial, gave testimony that Tommy Griffin was murdered on the night of February 21st, 1992. Scientific evidence did not support this theory due to the fact that Griffin's body was found in full rigor mortis when it was discovered on February 24th, 1992. A body does not stay in rigor mortis past about 36 hours. But the state needed to prove Griffin was murdered on the 21st in order to fit their narrative that James Dillinger and Gary Sutton were the perpetrators of this crime. Now let's remember, Sutton had an alibi from Friday evening on. Harlan, who is now deceased, was exposed for falsifying reports and was stripped of his medical license. Many cases that he testified in have already been overturned, and several others are currently being reinvestigated, with extreme measures being taken, including, but not limited to, the deceased bodies being exhumed for further testing. He determined the date of death not from an actual examination of the body, but from organ slides that were 2 months old, and current medical examiner in Tennessee says is scientifically impossible to gain the date of death from such information. Now, here's where it gets really tricky. Now, you remember they said that timeline, the date of death, was the 21st on Friday. Wait a minute. This is the autopsy report. Here is the autopsy report, people. Look. Date and time of death. February 24th, 1992. Time uncertain. Now, it seems that they were certain about the date of death because that is part of the autopsy procedures to find out when they died, how they died. And man, there is it's right there in black and white. How can Gary have murdered Tommy on Friday the 21st if the autopsy was determined to be the 24th, that Monday, the day he was found, which falls in line with all the initial investigators' statements that he was still in rigor mortis, the blood was still tacky, and the gunshots looked fresh, etc. They said he was so stiff that they could barely get him in the ambulance. Rigor mortis, again, dissipates after 36 hours. The evidence is here in black and white. Gary Wayne Sutton is innocent. If the date don't fit, they must acquit. Now let's look at the exculpatory evidence and an alternate suspect. We are now going to look at Mr. Lester Festus Johnson. In 1992, Lester was 41 years old and drove a 1976 Dodge D100 white truck. Remember that? You're going to want to remember that in a second. See the comparisons and Kirby declarations. We're going to look at that in a minute. He was arrested for violent crimes, threatened witnesses from jail in the Hartman case, had the motive and the opportunity. He confessed to wife that he had cut Hartman's throat for info pertaining to Vaughn's assault. Again, see the direct declaration of Mary Ann Husky, and we will see that in a moment. He was dropped off in Sevier County before sunset on the day that Griffin went missing. Again, see the declaration of Mary Ann Husky, and we'll look at that in a minute. He was also a member of a motorcycle gang made up mostly of Native Americans. That's important too. Remember that fact. See declaration of Lauren Kirby. Now remember, we said he drove a white D100. Well, now Gary drove a white Ram. They are similar looking trucks, but there is some differences as well. The key witness Brenda Gordon's statement to private investigator Heather Cohen was that she was never certain that the white Dodge truck was the Ram driven by Dillinger. When shown a picture of the D100, Gordon was unsure whether it was actually a D100 or a Ram. Also, Important to note is the fact that Dillinger's Ram had factory wheels with the Ram emblem on them. Miss Gordon never mentioned this distinguishing fact and does not recall seeing the emblem. This could be due to the fact, as her son testified, that there was no possible way that she could have gotten a good look at the vehicle from where she claimed to have been when she witnessed the vehicle departing the crime scene. It falls in line with the detectives in leading her statements. There we have the D100, and now we have the Dodge Ram, very similar trucks. Let's look at Lauren Kirby. Private investigator Heather Michelle Cohen received Mr. Kirby's name from Allie Finn from the Nashville Public Defender's Office. She met with Miss Finn after Dillinger's death, and while she was unable to provide her with copies of her work product, she was able to share details of her investigation as part of Dillinger's defense team. She visited Mr. Kirby at his home in Sevier County and was able to obtain a verbal statement and declaration containing pertinent information that further supports our theory that Lester Johnson is the real perpetrator of this crime. Having known Johnson for many years and having been law enforcement in Sevier County, Kirby was able to confirm that Lester Johnson's Dodge D100 was, in fact, white. Newly discovered witness. Gary Sutton has always maintained that after bailing Tommy Griffin out of jail that fateful Friday evening, he, Griffin, left with a heavy-set woman with dark hair, who was driving what he thought was a dark-colored Ford Falcon. Who was this mysterious woman in a Ford Falcon? Also in the document, Agent Davenport states he identified a woman who matched the description given by Sutton and Dillinger of the dark-haired, ugly, fat woman driving a Ford Falcon that Griffin left the jail with once they bailed him out. As stated by Davenport, that this woman did not have an alibi, but he still chose to clear her. Who was this woman? We should have had all those interviews conducted by the investigators. This makes at least 3 Brady violations due to the fact that this information was not present in the discovery that was handed over to the defense. More new evidence. Among witnesses interviewed by private investigator Heather Cohen is the victim of Johnson's assault in North Carolina, Tina Hartman. Miss Hartman has first-hand knowledge about the woman in what she was believed to be a Ford Falcon. Miss Hartman stated to Cohen that the vehicle was, in fact, a Ford Fairlane that was being driven by Robin Sutton and Penny Lewis Ash. Both of these women were known associates of Lester Johnson. Miss Hartman claims to have tried many times to come forward with this information that could have helped Dillinger and Sutton, but nobody would listen. Here we have a Ford Fairlane and a Ford Falcon, very similar vehicles. Now let's delve into the information that was intentionally left out of witness Jason McDonald's statement. McDonald provided an affidavit which states that he told investigators that he saw a dark-colored, boxy vehicle which matches a description of the Ford Fairlane, fleeing the area after hearing gunshots. McDonald claims that the prosecution did not ask him that question when he was on the stand. Therefore, the jury never heard evidence that would have supported Sutton's statement that Griffin left the jail with a woman driving a dark-colored Ford Falcon or Fairlane. Lester Johnson had motive and means to kill Tommy Griffin and Connie Branham. Tommy Griffin was murdered because Johnson believed Griffin was involved in the assault on a man named Michael Vaughn, which left Vaughn paralyzed. Vaughn's cousin Lester Johnson was determined to vindicate Vaughn, and in pursuit of that, he copped his own charges for cutting a woman's throat named Tina Hartman. Johnson was charged, but somehow managed to escape conviction through his relentless witness tampering. The North Carolina prosecutor on that case, General Clapsaddle, called Johnson the most dangerous person she ever had tried to prosecute. She too received death threats from Johnson while awaiting his trial, as did Tommy Griffin and Connie Branham, who were witnesses on that case. According to Mary Ann Husky, Johnson's girlfriend at the time of the murders, she picked Johnson up from the jail after he was released and dropped him off in Sevier County before sunset on the day Tommy Griffin disappeared, February 21st, 1992. But wait, there's more unidentified witnesses, more exculpatory evidence. TBI agent Davenport makes the crucial mistake of mentioning that there were two other suspects called Chief and Cowboy that were interviewed, but that he cleared them because they did not leave the bar when Sutton, Dellinger, and Griffin left, and because they, Chief and Cowboy, did not have serious criminal histories. This information was not disclosed to the defense and was not brought up at trial. Chief and Cowboy are important to this case because, one, they have gotten into an altercation with Sutton, Dellinger, and Griffin at the bar. There are likely the two older gentlemen that Griffin was with when he was arrested for public intoxication, and three, because it is likely that Chief is the same man who goes by that alias that was a member of the same motorcycle club as Lester Festus Johnson. Let's take a look at Chief. Private Investigator Cohen has identified Chief. He was a Native American who resided in both Cherokee, North Carolina, and Sevierville, Tennessee. He was a known member of the same motorcycle gang as Lester Johnson and was allegedly at the motorcycle rally where Johnson cut Hartman's throat. Although now deceased, it should be considered that he is likely one of the two older gentlemen that Griffin was with when he was arrested for public intoxication. It is also likely that he was one of the two men mentioned by the bartender as having been in an altercation with Dellinger, Sutton, and Griffin at the bar that night. Now let's turn our attention to Cowboy. Private Investigator Heather Cohen has identified Troy Turner as Cowboy. When she shared this name with Allie Finn from the Nashville Public Defender's Office, she conducted a database search that turned up several documents in the DA file from Turner, although she did not find any document that identified him as Cowboy. Turner is deceased. In one of the documents that Finn read to her, that was in the database was a letter written to Miss Griffin, Tommy's mother, on January 29, 1993, from Troy Turner. In this letter, Turner tells Miss Griffin that he knows who killed Tommy and Connie and why. Also present in this file is a letter to Al Smeltzer in which Turner is proposing to DA Al Smeltzer that he be used as an informant to take down a major drug dealers in the Sevier County and surrounding areas. There is also a statement from Turner saying that Al Smeltzer and others came to visit him while he was in prison in Ashland City and that he provided them with an affidavit. Turner claimed to be a close friend of Tommy and Connie's, and when discussed with them, that Tommy was involved in the drug ring and would often carry drugs in his prosthetic leg. According to Miss Finn, the post-conviction office obtained these statements, but that neither the affidavit or interview notes were present in the discovery. Therefore, this would be another Brady violation. Jason McDonald. McDonald provided an affidavit which states that he told investigators that he saw a dark-colored Boxy, i.e. Cadillac or Oldsmobile-type vehicle leaving the area when he heard the gunshots. McDonald claims that the prosecution did not ask him that question when he was on the stand, and as far as I've seen, it is not mentioned anywhere in the file. This could be considered exculpatory evidence. Barbara Gordon. Gordon provided an affidavit stating that she was uncertain whether the white truck she saw was a Dodge Ram or a D100. More supporting evidence. Bobby Floyd. Floyd provided a declaration stating that Al Smolter, Sevier County prosecutor, and Mike Flynn, Blount County prosecutor, came to see him while he was incarcerated and that they offered him a deal on his charges in exchange for his, Floyd's, testimony against Gary Sutton and James Dellinger. Floyd also provided information pertaining to the Sevier County Sheriff's dropping Floyd's charges in exchange for illegal weapons. Tina Hartman. Miss Hartman provided a lengthy and valuable statement pertaining to Lester Johnson being released from jail on the day Tommy Griffin went missing and regarding the Ford Fairlane. Teresa Gail Sparks, the juror. Sparks provided an affidavit stating that she was driven past the crime scene every day and on the way to and from jury duty, that she felt pressured to sign the death penalty verdict, and that she felt that Dellinger and Sutton should have been tried separately. Also, the jurors were seen reading newspapers and their case all over it in the hallways of the courthouse, and they're supposed to be sequestered. Gary Keys. Keys provided an affidavit stating that he and the other jurors were pressured to sign the guilty verdict by a woman that was getting irritated and wanted to go home. Whatever her plans were more important than making sure an innocent man is not put to death. A human life was not more important than what she had going on. So she was pressuring everybody else. The Nashville office was able to obtain the SBI file pertaining to Lester Johnson's attack on Tina Hartman. It was from this file that Miss Finn obtained Mr. Kirby's name. After Dellinger passed and that information was relayed to private investigator Heather Cohen, she was able to locate and interview Mr. Kirby to obtain crucial information pertaining to Johnson's D100 truck. While the SBI file was missing important documents that would have been helpful for Sutton's case, such as subpoenas and handwritten notes, there are other avenues that we can take to find more evidence that supports the alternate suspect theory. And that is in conclusion. The information we Have should suffice to reopen discovery and secure an order from the court for the TBI to hand over the investigative file. With that file, we believe we would find even more evidence to support the alternate suspect theory and prove Gary's innocence, or at the very least prove that exculpatory evidence was withheld and that the evidence that was withheld would absolutely have affected the outcome of the conviction. In January 2023, James Dellinger lost his life on death row for a crime that he did not commit. Gary Wayne Sutton still awaits execution, is innocent on death row. If the date don't fit, you must acquit. This presentation was a product of an amazing original by Heather Michelle Cohen and Rev. Dr. Kev adding just a few discoveries in the commentary. In the United States alone, the Innocence Project estimates that at best, that's a lowest estimate, 10% of people incarcerated are innocent in the United States. That is roughly 20,000 innocent people incarcerated, with many of those, like Gary, on death row and completely innocent.